The Vikings were fierce seafarers, setting out on voyages that could last weeks or even months across treacherous northern waters. They braved the North Atlantic in open wooden ships, facing storms, hunger, and the unknown. But how did they survive such long journeys with no chance to resupply? What provisions sustained them in a time before refrigeration or preservatives? Did they rely on dried fish, strange brewing techniques, or foods lost to history? The evidence gives us clues, but many of the answers remain shrouded in mystery, leaving us to piece together what really kept the Viking crews alive at sea. The Vikings lived during the early Middle Ages, roughly from the late 8th century to the early 11th century AD, and their homelands stretched across Scandinavia in present-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. They were not only raiders, as popular stories suggest, but also traders, explorers, and settlers whose ships reached as far as North America, the Middle East, and Central Asia. Their long voyages were made possible not only by their exceptional shipbuilding, but also by preparation for life at sea. Food was a central challenge, since fresh supplies quickly spoiled, and every sailor carried the weight of survival in the form of carefully chosen meals. Preserving food was one of the greatest challenges Vikings faced on sea voyages. Without refrigeration, they relied on methods familiar across early societies: drying, smoking, fermenting, and salting. Dried fish and meats became lightweight and long-lasting, surviving the damp sea air without spoiling quickly. Historians believe smoked lamb and pork were also staples, prepared in advance before crews pushed away from the shore. These methods ensured that meals could be stored in barrels or sacks for extended periods, making survival possible during long journeys across open waters. Bread and grains played a critical role in the Viking diet, both on land and at sea. Archaeological evidence from Viking settlements shows that barley, rye, and oats were widely used in early Scandinavia. On voyages, hard bread known as flatbread was a preferred choice. It was dry, durable, and remained edible for weeks. Historians believe that flour mixed with water could also be cooked into simple porridge-like meals while at sea, providing warmth and energy. Barley, in particular, was versatile, serving not only as food but as the foundation for brewing ale. Fish was perhaps the most obvious food for seafarers, and the Vikings used both fresh catches and preserved supplies. Salted herring and dried cod, known as stockfish, were common foods carried aboard ships. Stockfish, made by air-drying cod on wooden racks in the cold Nordic climate, became one of the most important preserved foods in Viking society. On the voyage itself, sailors fished when possible, supplementing their stores with fresh catches of cod, herring, or salmon. Evidence suggests fishing gear was often carried on long trips, signaling how vital the sea's bounty was to their survival. Although fish had a central role, preserved meat also accompanied Viking crews. Smoked mutton, salted pork, and occasionally horse meat provided extra protein. These foods required significant preparation before voyages, ensuring they would last without spoiling. Dairy products played a smaller but still notable role. Butter and cheese could be stored in barrels and eaten slowly over the course of a journey. Sour whey, a byproduct of cheesemaking, was sometimes carried as a liquid supplement, giving both nutrition and a way to preserve milk beyond its natural shelf life. Each of these items was carefully chosen to balance length of storage with ease of transport. Beverages may have been as important as food, since fresh water was difficult to store for long voyages. Contamination and spoilage were constant risks. To overcome this, Vikings relied on ale, a low-alcohol beer brewed from barley. The small alcohol content acted as a preservative, keeping the drink safe for weeks. Mead, a drink made from fermented honey, was also known in Viking culture, though it was likely less common on voyages due to honey's rarity. Historians believe that barrels of ale were piled onto ships alongside food stores, not only to slake thirst, but to ensure hydration over distances where clean water could not be guaranteed. While carefully stored supplies were the foundation of survival, Vikings were opportunistic eaters. When ships stopped at coastal areas or traveled along rivers, sailors sought fresh food. They gathered berries, hunted game, or obtained livestock during raids. Some voyages involved trading stops, where new supplies could be purchased or bartered. This opportunistic strategy allowed crews to stretch out their preserved stores. However, on journeys across open seas where land disappeared for weeks, foraging was impossible, making the preserved food even more essential to their diet. Cooking aboard Viking ships was possible, but limited by space and safety. Archaeological evidence and historical studies suggest that small cooking setups, such as portable fireboxes, could be used on longships, though open flames at sea were risky. More often, meals were eaten cold, or as simple stews made by boiling ingredients together once anchored near land. Wooden bowls and spoons found at archaeological sites indicate that meals were shared communally, with simple cooking methods prioritizing efficiency and survival over flavor. This minimized preparation time and preserved vital fuel supplies when available. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of Viking diets, not only from ship burials, but also from settlement sites where preserved food stores were found. Remnants of dried fish, bones from livestock, and even grain residues provide a picture of what Vikings ate both at home and on voyages. Barrels uncovered in ship burials contained traces of apples, hazelnuts, and dairy, showing a broader diversity than expected. Today, historians interpret this evidence as proof that Viking sailors did not entirely rely on monotonous diets. Instead, they sought variety whenever possible, bringing along foods that carried both nutritional and cultural importance. Sea voyages taxed the human body with physical strain, harsh weather, and limited nutrition. Even with preserved foods, meals could become monotonous, leading to what sailors across history have recognized as dietary fatigue. There was also the threat of deficiencies, especially a lack of fresh fruits and vegetables, which could result in illness over time. Historians suggest that the occasional inclusion of berries, apples, or other stored produce helped ward off these dangers, though it was far from guaranteed. Voyages to distant lands were not only trials of navigation and endurance, but also of managing the delicate balance between nourishment and survival. The story of Viking food at sea is not just about hunger or survival. It is about adaptation, ingenuity, and preparation in a world where every voyage carried immense risk. Dried fish, hard bread, smoked meats, ale, and even occasional fruit were among the many tools that allowed Viking sailors to cross vast oceans in pursuit of trade, conquest, and discovery. Archaeology continues to reveal more about these practices, shedding light on the lives of the crews behind the legends. What kept them alive was not only their strength and skill at the oars and sails, but their ability to bring with them a piece of their homeland, packed into barrels, dried on racks, and carried across the endless sea.